Peace and love, brothers and sisters, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Cosmo Ill Show. Today we have a very pressing show for anyone concerned with civil rights, citizenship, nationality, and status, and specifically birthright citizenship, supposedly guaranteed through by the 14th Amendment. Basically, 14th Amendment citizenship. It's on the chopping block, or it's very close to coming to that, and we're gonna go over a few recent articles that have come out and political figures, primarily Republicans, who are advocating this. Now, we already talked about this push for this false flag or this fake civil rights movement to try to restore the voting privileges that have virtually been taken away by the Supreme Court in 2013, but were granted in the 1960s with the Voters' Rights Act and the Civil Rights Bill. Now we see that the 14th Amendment, which guaranteed so-called black people, or supposedly guaranteed so-called black people citizenship, which is not real citizenship, but it puts so-called black people and others under the jurisdiction of the United States Corporation. But we're going to go into that. It's the only leg that so-called black people, or what I mean by black people are those people that do not proclaim their nationality or submit to that caste status, that chattel property label of black, which was invented in the context in which I'm using it during the Atlantic slave trade and thereafter, to keep so-called black people in subjugation, ex-slaves in subjugation, to keep them away from their true birthrights. They installed this fake birthright citizenship. And this is what they are pretty much governing under today. And this is the justification of so-called black people feeling that they have some type of rights guaranteed under the Constitution, which we know, based on the Supreme Court decision of Dred Scott, that this is not the case. So before I get ahead of myself, we're also going to be giving some updates on brother Mansour Ball-Bey, who was murdered by the Roman forces, and how that case is falling apart. So let's go ahead and get into it. And what I've done is I've extracted some excerpts from these articles, which pretty much tell the story for me, but it'll also give you some background, and it'll put you current with what's going on in relationship to so-called civil rights, and in relationship to birthright citizenship, so-called birthright citizenship, or 14th Amendment citizenship, which, remember, is the very leg that the system itself stands on, which tells you that so-called black people are citizens because of the 14th Amendment and this particular clause. So this is very significant. This is highly significant. So we're going to go into it. And it's entitled, this particular show was entitled 14th Amendment Citizenship Coming to an End. No more citizenship for Negroes, blacks, and colors. And so the excerpt, the first excerpt reads, now this is what they want you, to believe, or this is what they feed you when they teach you about the 14th Amendment. But it's telling, so let's read it. It says, any child born in the United States is automatically a U.S. citizen, even if his or her parents are in the country temporarily or illegally. That long-standing guarantee has given rise to many debates over immigration and citizenship. Now, the media focuses on the immigration side of it. They don't focus on the citizenship side of it, right? Because number one, they're controlling people through they're controlling immigrants through the naturalization process, and that's where immigration comes in. But the citizenship side is what applies to us more than anything. All right? Because remember, like I said, this is the leg that the system stands on in their history books, which says that so-called black people are guaranteed citizenship. So it says, some Americans oppose birthright citizenship, either because they see it as arbitrary or undeserved, or because they believe it encourages women to enter the country illegally to give birth. They are horrified that about 4 million children of immigrants living here illegally possess U.S. citizenship. So like I said, this is what they focus on. And you'll see in the news that the epidemic of, or the trend of people coming here, traveling here right at the time of their pregnancy, mainly from China, and having their children here. And then you also have the immigrants who come here, or so-called illegal aliens, to have their children. And of course, we know who they call illegal alien. We know they're the real illegal alien. But what of so-called Negroes, blacks, and colors? What does the 14th Amendment mean? The article, matter of fact, I pulled this right off of PBS, and I like the way they worded it. It says, the 14th Amendment was one of 3 amendments to the Constitution adopted after the Civil War to guarantee so-called black rights. So-called is my word. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, supposedly, of course. The 14th guaranteed or granted citizenship to people once enslaved. And the 15th Amendment guaranteed so-called black people the right to vote. Now, we already know about the gutting of the Voters' Rights Act, which is the act which supposedly guaranteed or enforced the right of so-called black people to vote. And we already know that that's pretty much, it's already gone. It's gutted. Now, in relationship to the 14th Amendment and granting citizenship to a people once enslaved. Now, what type of citizenship? Well, first of all, who are the people once enslaved? These are the people known today as Negroes, blacks, and coloreds. All right? You know that. Everyone knows that. That so-called black people are supposed to be the descendants of slaves. Now, this is the very amendment to the Constitution which is supposedly guaranteeing ex-slaves their citizenship. So in essence, without this, there is no semblance of citizenship, because we know this is a pseudo-citizenship, and we're going to get into that a little bit further. Let me keep reading. It says, it did this by granting citizenship to anyone born in the United States and prohibiting states from denying or abridging the privileges or immunities of citizens of the U.S., depriving any person of his life, liberty, or property without due process of law, or denying to anyone, or any person within their jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. And then it says in parentheses, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges. And that's a quote from the amendment. But that's exactly what it is. It doesn't guarantee rights. It grants privileges and immunities. It merely puts you under their jurisdiction and makes you a subject. So that last excerpt was from PBS, The Fall of Jim Crow, but most of this information you can get from a basic history book or encyclopedia or something like that. So now I'm going to move on to what the definition of birthright citizenship. What exactly is that? And this definition we get from uslegal.com. You can look it up. Birthright citizenship. And it says birthright citizenship refers to citizenship granted to a person by virtue of the circumstances of his or her birth. Accordingly, any person born within the territory of the U.S. is granted citizenship by birth. A child born overseas to U.S. citizens also acquire U.S. citizenship. A birthright citizenship can be acquired through, now there's 2 ways it can be acquired. We already know about the first way. Number one is a right by which a nationality or citizenship can be recognized to any individual born in a territory or related state. And the second is a social policy by which nationality or citizenship is not determined by place of birth, but by having an ancestor who is a national or a citizen of the state. But in recent days, and I'm just going to keep reading, but in recent days, many Republican presidential candidates, and this is another excerpt, have said it's time to revisit that privilege, which has been around since the country's founding. In fact, the only time the country took away birthright citizenship from a group of people was during the days of slavery, when the Supreme Court ruled that African Americans, either free or slave, could never be citizens. All right. Now, that ruling has never been overturned. All right. I'm going to say that again. The ruling that they're referring to is the Dred Scott case. So answer me this. If it was taken away, which I don't even agree with that terminology, but we're just going to say citizenship. I'm not going to say this birthright citizenship, because to me it's a new creation. But let's put it in the context of citizenship, or let's reverse it. Let's say the only time that a people were denied citizenship on a wholesale scale were so-called descendants of Africa, or so-called blacks in this country, in the Dred Scott decision, which ruled that so-called blacks could not be citizens. Now, how do so-called black people overcome this hurdle of the Supreme Court? It's supposedly by the 14th Amendment, which doesn't really grant true citizenship, but it gives the semblance of citizenship. And so-called black people feel that they have citizenship, and the whole civil rights movement is based out of this amendment. And here you have it on the chopping block. Now, I wonder how many so-called black people know this. You don't hear about it in the news. I don't hear any of the civil rights profiteers screaming about this at all. Interesting. So I'm sharing this information because I try to make things current. I mean, yes, we know our nationality, we know our history, but do we know what's going on politically around us and what's affecting us, or at least affecting our family or the people we're duty bound to uplift, fallen humanity, so-called Negroes, blacks, and colors. And that's why this information is important, because it becomes an example so that you can help raise them up. You can say, look, this is what's going on right now. Do you know about this? And it raises the question of nationality, because nationality is the order of the day. So we're going to move on. Moving on, I'm going to do something a little different. I haven't done this before. I don't know how many of you listeners have actually made it this far into the show, but if you have, I do have a Facebook, Cosmo Ill, the Minister of Culture. You should be able to find me because I do updates. It's more current. I post things daily, interesting facts and things you might want to be aware of, and things you might want to follow a little bit more closely. So today I'm going to read off of my wall today, because we put up some posts a few days ago. Brother Mansour Ball Bay, who was murdered by the police force in St. Louis, so-called police force, the Roman forces in St. Louis. The case is falling apart. We already talked about in the last show how he was shot in the back, confirmed by the autopsy. But before we go on, it was a beautiful funeral. There were a lot of comments. Moorish nationals came out and represented and sent the brother off well. I posted some pictures of that as well. But what I want to do is read off of the wall. There were a few striking comments on the wall, so I'm going to go ahead and read some of them off. Of course, we got a lot of traditional Islams and Islamisms, but some interesting comments. So we have from Secret Garden Bay on Facebook. There is a saying that killing one person unjustly is like killing all of humanity. This is what Iblis, or the devil, the shaitan, set out to do, to kill us all. Iblis is not here to protect and serve. Then we have Nasir Bey. He says, I'm tired of posting RIP. And then he has exclamation points. Donald Sterling's statements last year are ringing loud in my head. Our people do not look out for one another like the Jews. And then we also have Theo Jones. He states, time never was when man was not. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. A part meaning the attributes. Victory is sure and Allah is leading on. And one is sure to find himself where he can solve his problems best. Go in peace. So we want to give our Islams to the young Moor and our condolences to the family. Verily from God we come and to him we return. So basically the Roman forces tried to paint Brother Ball Bey as a criminal, thug, police, killer on the loose, a hungry, wild, seeking police blood because of his hip hop video, which was speaking out against police terrorism in a form of social expression known as urban griot or hip hop music, where even the very NWA movie that just came out, F the Police, is a part of hip hop. It's a whole genre now. Dead Prez talks about F the Police. Now, in a real way, the youth on the ground are experiencing the type of oppression that's making this type of feeling or this type of sentiment more of a reality. And what wouldn't happen when they're being gunned down in the street like Brother Ball Bey? They tried to paint him as a demon, and now they said that he was in a drug house and they were raiding the house and they were defending themselves after he shot at them. Autopsy comes out, come to find out he was shot in the back. That already is crazy, because how you gonna be shooting at someone and get shot in the back? So they say, all right, well, the partner came up and did it. Now information is coming out that no, he was coming out of another house with his friend and had nothing to do with it. And how many times do we see, and you have jokes about it, comedians make jokes about it, Europeans make a mistake, European or just Roman forces in general make a mistake and they want to sprinkle some crack. This looks like another sprinkle some crack type situation. They probably weren't trying to kill him. They may have been trying to kill him, but then they want to try to sprinkle some crack. That's basically what's going on, And then they have to demonize him in order to do it. So they want to make him a part of this, whatever they were looking for. And this brother's just a Moorish national visiting one of his friends. So more information is going to be coming out about the case, of course. So I hope you're following. If you want to get it more up to date, catch me on the Facebook wall, Cosmo Ill. I would also like to say again about the funeral. Brothers and sisters showed up in fezzes, in full garb, were pallbearers, and delivered funeral services. As it says in the oral statements of Noble Drew Ali, whenever a Moor walks into a church, it becomes a temple. And that's exactly what it looked like. Flags hoisted, Moors on each side, seated on each side of the coffin, just like it's supposed to be, demonstrating our ancient Moabite culture. And anybody who knows ancient Moabite culture, you know what I mean. So I'm going to leave you with that. And as always, peace, love, all the above.